गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. I'll call back. I'll call back. Tell him call. I will call back.
Hello? Hello? He says he'll call you back. Okay.
So we are in Panchadashi, chapter 12, verse number 78. And here, in the previous verses, the teacher told the student that the consciousness and the bliss both are separate or seem to be separate, and they are separated only at the thought level. Essentially they are not separate. So just like flower is one, but the form, the color, the fragrance, the feeling, it's all different. Similarly, but the flower is one. Similarly, the truth is one, which is existence, consciousness, bliss, but it seems to be separate, but only at the thought level. And that was told in our verse number 77. Then the student says that in the case of flower, although the different qualities are perceived through different senses, the knowledge of the flower is of one composite whole. On the other hand, in the case of Atma, the Chit and Ananda appear to have been separated because of the medium of thought. Is there any possibility for experiencing the Chit and Ananda simultaneously? Is it possible that while we are living, we can experience Chit and Ananda, consciousness and bliss at the same time? See? Is it possible?
Yeah.
Huh? How? Tell. You, if you have not read the book. Yes, it is the same. Then why are you calling it two? Huh? Then at this very moment, if your Atma, you are of the nature of Atma, are you experiencing consciousness and bliss at the same time? That is the question. So the student is asking this. Because truth can be, you can be one with the truth only in the now, not in the past or in the future. So where can we, how can we, that is the dilemma for the student now. I can understand seeing, hearing, touching, feeling for a flower is at different sensory level. But thoughts are in my mind only. And you are saying consciousness is different from bliss only at the level of thought. Is it? But you said consciousness and bliss are one, essentially. But I am thinking of consciousness and bliss as two separate thoughts, isn't it? That's why I am using those two words. Is it possible for me to experience both of them at the same time?
It depends who's asking.
It is not possible for the thought anyways to experience consciousness.
We are not saying that thought is going to experience consciousness. We are saying, can consciousness, what is consciousness? The light of consciousness, the knowledge. What is that knowledge? That is the illuminating power of the Chidabhas to illuminate a thought. In the last class, this is what was told. The mind goes out of the senses, grabs a particular form or a sense or a whatever sense it is, and it envelops that, and it comes into your mind. And then the light of consciousness illuminates that particular thing that has been grabbed by the mind, and what is that which illuminates? The I illuminates, and when it illuminates that, then that is known as that complete equation of experiencer, experienced, and the process of experiencing, that these three make one thought. See, these three make one thought. So now if I am using consciousness, consciousness is an idea, it is a thought, it has come into my mind, it is bathing in the light of consciousness.
If you're in samadhi, yes.
Say that again.
If you're in samadhi, yes.
Yes, in samadhi, yes, it is possible. Where consciousness and bliss, they cease to be separate from each other. They cease to be separate from each other. They both merge. The thought of consciousness and the thought of bliss ceases to exist independently, or everything goes back to its source. That is one possibility. So let's see what here it says. Sattva vrittau chit sukhaikyam, sattva vrittau chit sukhaikyam, tadvruter nirmala tvataha, tadvruter nirmala tvataha, rajo vruttestu malinyat, rajo vruttestu malinyat, sukhanshotra tiraskrutaha. The identity between the consciousness and bliss is seen in sattvic thoughts, they being free from impurities. Now here they are giving you a clue. What is that? Okay, let me read the whole thing. However, in the rajasic thoughts, because of the impurities, the bliss aspect of the bliss aspect is hidden. Therefore, consciousness alone is reflected and not bliss. So, is samadhi a state of sattvic? Is a sattvic state? Samadhi is beyond the. So, what is sattvic state? A state of purity. What is purity according to us? According to the scriptures? What is purity? Where there is no sense of otherness, that is purity, right? There is no sense of ownership, that is purity. Yeah. That is purity. So where there is no sense of otherness, there is no sense of ownership or identity, the state is called the sattvic state. And there the consciousness and bliss can be experienced at the same time. So here, yes, the teacher is saying, yes, it is possible to experience the oneness or unity of Chit and Anand when the thoughts are of sattvic nature, for it is only in the sattvic vritti that both consciousness bliss are experienced simultaneously. So can I experience the consciousness and bliss with the thought called table? Can I experience the consciousness and bliss at the same time with the thought called Krishna? If I get out of the way, it is possible. So depends upon what you are thinking. If you are thinking of gross, it will not bring about the simultaneous expression of consciousness and bliss. If you are thinking about subtle, still it will not bring about the simultaneous expression of consciousness and bliss. Remember we did in Amrita Anubhav, we did Vaikhari Madhyama Pashyanti Para. So what is happening there? Vaikhari is very gross, isn't it? Madhyama is subtle. Pashyanti is where the thought differentiation is merging into each other. It is going into a thought-free state of mind, isn't it? So what is happening there? Slowly from gross, we are becoming subtler. Our mind is As we go through that process, our mind is becoming sattvic before going into samadhi. So, the reason is the sattva vritti means thoughts. The sattva vrittis are pure without agitation or ignorance or any other blemish.
Is Pashyanti Sattvic or Vaikhari Sattvic?
Vaikhari is the sattvic, but it can become rajasic or tamasic. In general, waking state is sattvic. Then don't get confused. In deep sleep, dream and waking. Waking is sattvic. But now you are in the waking. In waking again there is the differences are there. Because you are not experiencing consciousness and bliss at the same time, isn't it? So within sattvic state, now we have to do this sadhana to go from gross to subtle to Pashyanti. But with awareness. If you don't do with awareness, you will fall into Pashyanti means deep sleep state. But if you do the sadhana of the mantra japa with awareness, you will go to a thought-free state and yet be awake. Yet be awake. Then it is possible. So, what is purity of the sattvic thoughts? They are pure without agitation. They are pure means there is no blemish. What is without agitation? See, agitation is when anything we experience, anything we think, it leads to other thoughts. This happens in rajasic state. In deep sleep state, it's a state of ignorance. But in rajasic state, it leads to, Lata, oh, why did you not, I haven't seen you for such a long time. Oh, you, oh, how are you? I haven't seen you for a long time. Everything is okay. Blah, blah, blah. Suddenly one thought leads to many thoughts. You can take agitation as a reaction, but even this is agitation. Sattvic state is where a thought comes of a divine nature and you are not interested in extending it or not extending it. You are neutral to it. That's when it becomes sattvic. But normally in life we see, I see Surendran, just now I saw him, oh, go have a good time, come back. And all I had to say is let him do what he wants to. He wants to touch the feet, let him touch the feet, get the ashirvad and let him go. But unwanted, what do you call, blabbering. What is that blabbering due to? That is the agitation. We are not comfortable. We think we must say something. We must say something. It's a default mode inside of us. Yes, yes. It's a habit. And we must, if we have to get into the sattvic state or sattvic thoughts, then we must get out of that habit of initiating thinking. On the other hand, Rajoguna vritti are impure, agitated and disturbed, the impurities being. So again, remember in Yoga Sutra, the 5 types of mind were told. When we say 5 types of mind, conditions of mind, it is about the condition of the vrittis, the thoughts. What were they? That was Moodha vritti, Moodha mana, Kshipta mana, Vikshipta mana, Niruddha mana and Ekagra mana. These are the 5 conditions of the mind or the dispositions. First was Moodha mana. Moodha mana is ignorant mind, Buddhu, stupid. Kshipta mana is agitated mind. For small things it gets agitated, restless, can't stay focused. And eventually this type of mind leads to depression, self-pity, etc. because it's not able to sit quietly. It needs to communicate, it needs to talk, it needs to think. It just finds itself incapable. Empty means, "Ore baapre, I must fill up the mind with something." Something you will keep, such people keep talking, or thinking when nobody is listening to them. This is kshipta mana. Vikshipta mana is distracted mind. Distracted mind, this is the state most of the seekers also fall into that. That is, they want to focus on something, but something comes and takes their mind away. And then again they bring it back, again it takes them away, again it brings them back, and this goes, the whole drama goes on. Niruddha mana, the last one, Niruddha means no thoughts, no mind. In sleep, that is the state. Or sometimes you are like a zombie, eyes are open, ears are open, nose is open, mouth is open, but coma, Niruddha mana. Deep sleep, Niruddha mana. In a shocked state, just after an accident or something, or you have banged your head against something, Niruddha mana. Mind is empty. Ekagra mana, single pointed mind. Single pointed mind is sattvic mind. Only this bhumika is where the consciousness and bliss have the possibility of expressing simultaneously. Only in this. So we have to make the mind single pointed. What happens when mind becomes single pointed? When it is not thinking of other thoughts? No, that is what it is written here. The mind expands. The mind expands.
It's a feeling of space.
Conscious space. Not just space. Just thinking of space will take you to deep sleep. It will be a niruddha mana. It will take you to void. It will take you to emptiness. That is not our goal. Our goal is the conscious being, not empty space. Not empty space. But it can be a good beginning exercise that when you wake up in the morning, you focus on the empty space, because the mind has not started yet. Mind has not become active yet. You are naturally in a state of sattvic disposition. Your mind is. So at that time, you are awake. You are not interested in getting involved in the world. That's why you keep lying in the bed for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 hour, whatever. At that time, focus on the empty space. Don't create what you call an imaginary movie in your mind. Keep the switch off. But remain awake. Don't go to sleep again. So it is a window of opportunity every day, before going to sleep and just when you wake up. Because exactly the same thing, these two states, before sleep and when you wake up, this is exactly what happens when you go into meditation. Many times you will go here, you will go there, you will wake up, you will get distracted. But when you settle down, then exactly that thing is going to take place. That you are awake, there is no thought in the mind, and nature is already providing you with that opportunity every morning. Catch it. Kartrutva abhimana, the sense of doership, and the sense of incompleteness, these are the two expressions at the rajasic level that makes us agitated, that makes us the ownership is taken up. Therefore, in this condition of malinatva, of rajasic vritti, the bliss aspect is as if covered. So what is this ownership? Ownership is done by a pseudo entity which does not exist. The ego does not exist. Remember, we saw, not some in one of the chapters, we saw one subject, one object, and the instrument of knowledge creates one thought. So I, camera is the that, and the instrument of seeing is the that is what is taking place right now. I'm seeing, I see the camera. One thought has come about. See? Story over. But then second story, what happens? It is my camera. Who says this is my camera? Not this I. It is this imagined continuity of I. Because at any given moment, one thought comes, it goes away. Next thought is born, it remains for some time in the mind, then it dies away, then the next thought appears. Because of the subject, object, and the instrument knowledge, it remains for some time, then it goes away, and the equation is complete. Story is over. Just like yesterday's waking happened and it went away. Dream happened, it went away. Deep sleep, it happened, it went away. Same way in the thought, every thought is appearing and going away. But there is an imagined continuity that this I is the continuous one. The I appeared only because that was there, and that thought came and it went away. And the example which we saw in our Amrit Anubhav, that you take a sparkler and you make it go round and round and round. Sparkler is one. At any given moment in space, it is appearing only once at a time, isn't it? At what do you call? At 9 o'clock position, at 12 o'clock position, at 3 o'clock position, at 6 o'clock position, it is only at one at a time it is. It cannot be at all the places at the same time. It is not possible. But because the speed is so great, you see an imagined continuity of light. Exactly the same way. This imagined continuity of I, the consciousness of life, is the pseudo entity, the ghost. And this is the fellow who does not exist, who takes the ownership, who takes the ownership of all the thoughts, who takes the ownership of the past, who takes the ownership for the future, who takes the ownership of the body, who takes the ownership of of the thinking, of the emotions, everything he takes the ownership of. See? Who is this? Not you. Don't take yourself to be the wrong, don't create a wrong identity here. Then who is it? It is this imagined fellow. That fellow is taking the ownership, the kartrutva. I have to do something to realize. I have to do something to understand. Forget it. Where I have to, gone. You are caught up in the rajas. It will create activity. Activity will make you agitated. It will make you expect. It will want a result, and you get caught up in the whole loop before you know it. It is if it is understood that life is not only agitations but also peace. It is not only doing but also not doing. Then the mind can be maintained in sattvic vritti. What does sattvic vritti mean here? How Swamiji is explaining? Our understanding of not doing means becoming lazy. Our understanding of not doing means becoming lazy. And our understanding of doing means becoming hyper, which leads to agitations, which leads to expectations, as I just explained. So can we remain in a disposition where activity is going on but no ownership is there? Can we be in a disposition where there is no not doing? That means there is no activity in the mind going on. Mind is empty, but no ownership is there, no identification with it is there. Then what will happen? You will go into samadhi. So it means in an empty mind, are you aware? Are you aware? Are you awake? Let's just forget about awake. Are you awake when the mind is empty? And are you moving through life, allowing whatever is taking place or not taking place, without taking ownership of it, without having the arrogance that I did it or I didn't do it? If you are maintaining this disposition, you are in a sattvic state of mind. Very subtle. But we have to remember this. It all comes back to samatvam yoga uchyate, remaining equanimous, remaining a witness, remaining, last week I was telling you, neutral, coming into the neutral gear all the time. Not reverse gear, not first, second, third, fourth, fifth gear. Remaining always in the neutral. The sattvic buddhi, now how does a sattvic buddhi come about? Sattvic disposition, how it comes about? It comes about as a result of fulfillment, contentment, which in turn is the outcome of an orderly and systematic lifestyle, not an erratic lifestyle. So when we eat like a Rakshas. And when we don't eat, we will go hungry for three Puri. Navratri we will not eat, 9 days we will not eat. And then on the 10th day, we'll take the revenge for the 9 days that we have not eaten. You see? I don't go shopping, but when I go, beware, I'm coming. Huh? Everything is at extremes. And that you can notice when you are moving through life. This is what I tell the girls at the back. I hate that. Don't hate, man. It's a very, very extreme reaction. It leaves a very deep impression in your, that hate is more powerful than love in making space in your mind. I don't prefer, but don't hate anything. So move through life without likes, dislikes. Move through life without attachment or detachment. Move through life without giving attention to if someone is praising you or insulting you, not getting affected inside. Move through life, it is heat or cold, you shouldn't be bothered. No reaction must come out of you. Just take it in the stride. Without complaints, exactly. Because if you are accepting it, then you will see the opportunity in that. You are not looking for it, but you are not reacting. You will react. Agitation, why there is no cooler, why there is no heater, why there is this not there, why that is not there, why summer is there, why it had to become so hot today, and now I look forward to the next 5 days when it is going to be cool. When we go through life reacting like this, we can never get into the sattvic state. For sattvic state, a balanced mind is required. A mind which is content and fulfilled at every moment. It is fulfilled and content. How can you be fulfilled and content? When you are not desiring anything in life. So does that mean that I should not look? I desired to go to Dandenong for a walk this morning. I desired to look for a job. Do all that. But with awareness. Because that is, even if you say, I don't want to do it, after some time it will push and come out. That thought that I have to look for a job, otherwise how will I go? I have to go for a gym. I have to go to the doctor. I have to eat proper food. Whatever is the itch inside. Don't think that you are desiring. The nature of the mind is to desire, to have thoughts. That ownership is the problem. Cut that umbilical cord of ownership of the thoughts. Still the thoughts will come that I have to go to the mountain, I have to look for a job, but there is no ownership of that thought. It has come of its own accord, it will fulfill itself, it is meant to fulfill itself. Because I'm other than the mind, I'm other than the thoughts. This is the inner disposition. For that to come about, a regular disciplined lifestyle is required. That is why in yoga it is told again and again, many times this thought comes, yama and niyama, living such a lifestyle that we do not disturb the world by thought, word or deed, nor get disturbed by the thought, word and deed of the world. When we become immune to the world in this sense, then comes the niyama. Niyama means we do not become a disturbance to ourselves. How do we become disturbance to ourselves? By our own thinking. And that thinking can be curtailed, can be redirected, can be improved upon only through disciplined living. That we get up in the morning, we sit in meditation, we do a little bit of exercise, pranayam, that we study the scripture, touch, expose our mind to the scriptures in the morning, so that that becomes the theme of contemplation for the mind for the rest of the day. And then when you are working during the day, naturally you get distracted and you have to do other things. The habit has not gone of taking ownership. But then when you remember sometimes in between, come back to base. Then when you come back, again expose yourself to the mind, because how long your whole day, if you're going to keep thinking about the work, it's not going to make your mind, sattvic. It's not possible. So bring yourself back. Again, come back, take a shower or clean. We're talking about discipline here. Again, light the lamp outside or inside, study the scripture, sit for a little bit of meditation, and then eat food, eat at regular times, etc., etc. So once this discipline is created, within a shift starts taking place, because regular exposure to meditation, regular exposure to mantra japa, regular exposure to exercise. If you go regularly to exercise, will your health improve or not? It will. Fitness will come. Similarly, if your mind is exposed to scriptures again and again, if your mind is exposed to meditation on a daily basis, twice, thrice a day, if your mind is exposed to mantra japa on a daily basis, 2-3 times a day, whatever short period it may be, the strength of the mind will get better. And what is the strength of the mind? It will become single-pointed. Means it is going away, moving away from tamas and rajas into the sattvic sphere. This is what is told here. Sattvic sukham, the sattvic sukham is where chit and ananda manifest together, where loss and gain, knowledge and ignorance, action and inaction have no relevance. So all opposites in life in a sattvic state have got no relevance, meaning you are not available to them, because they will still come. Action, inaction will happen. Praise and insult will come. Hunger and thirst will come. Heat and cold will come. But there is no owner there. And therefore you fall into the sattvic frame. How in Rajoguna Vritti, this sukham is covered, is explained through an example. So this part is clear between the rajas and tamas and sattva. Now, tintini falamatyamalam, tintini falamatyamalam. No, tintini falamatyamlam, तिन्तिणी फलमत्यम्लं लवणेन युतं यदा तदाम्लस्य तिरस्काराद् ईषदम्लं यथा तथा. See, this is the beauty of our teachers of past, that they came up with such beautiful examples. Huh? Just as when the extremely sour tamarind is mixed with salt, the sourness is reduced or not manifested and only little sour taste is left. So also in Rajasic thought, the bliss aspect is hidden due to impurities. So just like the sourness of the tamarind is hidden or gets covered by the salt added to the tamarind, similarly in Rajasic thought, the sense of otherness, the sense of doership, the sense of ownership covers the bliss aspect. So here the sourness is the bliss and the salt is the Rajasic thought or the ownership or the agitation, etc., etc. Now another thought is taken up, a continuation of what was discussed in chapter 11. There it was emphasized that aparoksha anubhuti, direct experience, is possible with continued yoga abhyasa or nirvikalpa samadhi. Granted that supreme love is equivalent to supreme joy, the Atma, which is Priyatamaha, is Paramananda. Can this realization be gained without the rigors of yoga abhyas? So now you will wonder, suddenly they have stopped that topic. So if you remember, in between they started this topic given above from Atipriti. What is most dearest to us? That was the topic that they had begun suddenly. They just taken, because we need to understand where what is the car dear to us, is the parents dear to us, are the children dear to us, is our career dear to us, is our position in society dear to us, what is more dear to us? And there the examples of the Mukhyatma, Mithyatma and Gaunatma were told, that don't get lost. It is you must be the Mukhyatma all the time. Your attention should be on the Mukhyatma, not on the Mithyatma, not on the Gaunatma. Mithyatma being consciousness which is identified with the body, but breath, mind, intellect. And Gaunatma is that consciousness which is identified with something else in the world, some name or form. And that was Gaunatma, which brings about a role within your mind. You express as that particular role. Father, mother, daughter, sister, etc. So then if this Mukhyatma is on my attention, just to reinforce that we come to this Mukhyatma, we contemplate on this Mukhyatma, we be that Mukhyatma, this topic of what is very dear to us was brought about. We can contemplate on Mukhyatma and then get lost in the relations and the world again. So it was told through this example of Preeti, where the teacher made one statement that whatever is dear to you will make you cry. So what is dear to you? Either in Gaunatma, something in the world is dear to you. As a son, mother is dear to you. As a teacher, students are dear to you. As a Gaunatma, some object or person will be dear to you. As a Mithyatma, the body, breath, mind, intellect will be dear to you. Your concepts, your ideas, your emotions, your feelings, your compassion, your hunger, your thirst, your comfort, your discomfort, it is very dear to you. So whatever is dear to you will make you cry, was the statement of the teacher. Remember the whole thing. So the teacher is saying, don't fall into this trap. And there, through analysis of different examples, he took He said, Mukhya Atma is the most dear to you. Your essence is the most dear to you. And what is this essence? It is consciousness and bliss. And in that strain of thought, as it was getting unfolded, the thought of consciousness and bliss came about. And there, because the student had a doubt that what was the thought? That if Atma is consciousness and bliss, then I am conscious and I am Atma right now, then why am I not experiencing consciousness and bliss simultaneously? If I am Mukhyatma right now, because Mukhyatma is not going to come from outside, either I am Gaunatma or I am Mithyatma or I am Mukhyatma, all at the same time, isn't it? But where is my attention? The student is asking, if I am Mukhyatma right now, why am I not able to experience the consciousness and bliss at the same time simultaneously? To that question, the teacher explained, gave the example of the flower, but then he also explained that only in a sattvic mind, a sattvic thought, that it is possible, not in a rajasic or tamasic. Tamasic is dull, rajasic is agitated, distracted, so there also it is not possible. So with this, the thought of what started as the Mukhyatma, Mithyatma and Gaunatma, our focus that Mukhyatma is the most important, it is the most dear, whether we accept it or not, it is the most dear. We do everything for our own sake. We don't do it for anyone else's sake. This was established. Now that topic gets over. Now the next topic is beginning. And this topic is about, can we come to that aparoksha anubhuti. Aparoksha anubhuti, there is another text by Shankaracharya also, Adi Shankaracharya, aparoksha anubhuti, beautiful text. I think I don't know you were there when we took it in one of the retreats. Direct experience of the divine, of the self, of the Mukhyatma. I am and I am. There is no thought to know I am. I am, full stop. Without a thought. Is it possible? Here it is told, it was emphasized that aparoksha anubhuti is possible with continued yoga abhyas or nirvikalpa samadhi. The Atma which is priyatamaha, this Atma, this Mukhyatma which is the most dear, priyatamaha, it is very very dear to us, it is of the nature of Paramananda. Can this realization be brought about without going through yama, niyama, asana, pranayam, pratyahara, dharana, dhyan, samadhi? Because it is ever present. So he wants the shortcut. And yes, whenever realization takes place, it will happen instantaneously. So he is saying, is it possible right now without all those, because if I get into asana, my God, if body doesn't become flexible, then it doesn't mean that I cannot do pranayam. If pranayam I can't, if I got asthma, then I cannot do pranayam. I cannot do pranayam. तुम्हारे पास केबल है इसका? मम्मी से ले लेना फोन का, चार्जर का, फोन चार्जर. ननो प्रियतमत्वेन परमानंदतात्मनि विवेक्तुं शक्यतामेवं विना योगेन किं भवेत्. It says, a doubt is raised. One can discriminate that the self is supreme bliss, that is, of the nature of Paramananda, since it is supremely dear to us. So it is Atipriya. So you hear the word instead of Atipriya. So that was the foundation that they created before coming to this verse, that what is most dear to us is our Atma. Everyone does everything for the sake of the self alone. So it is Atipriya. It is of the nature of bliss also. This being so, without the practice of yoga, not by mere discrimination, what is achieved? What is meant is that unless the indirect knowledge gained through discrimination is converted into direct knowledge, there cannot be liberation. In other words, mere discrimination is not a means of liberation. So here the teacher says, all that has been said about the Atma being of the nature of bliss is accepted, yet there is a doubt. It is possible to discriminate and arrive at the clear conclusion that Atma is Paramananda Swarup because it is associated with supreme love and it has got nothing to do with the Gaunatma or Mithyatma, as I was explaining you before. But then, what is the use of this discrimination and knowledge unless it is followed up by the practice of yoga? Do we need to do anything in order to be that Mukhyatma? Then why is the sadhana taking place? Why are we studying the scriptures? Why are we sitting in meditation? Why are we doing the mantra japa? Why are we contemplating? What is the purpose of all this? To purify. To remove that which is coming between me and myself. I am still in a default mode of Gaunatma and Mithyatma. I am essentially Mukhyatma. So, I understand I am Mukhyatma, but I am not able to abide as Mukhyatma because I am pulled in different directions because of this default setting of Mithyatma and Gaunatma. So all this sadhana, so to speak, meditation, chanting, satsangs, all this is in order to remove the impact of the Gaunatma and Mithyatma. When will the impact of Gaunatma and Mithyatma will be removed? When? Only when we focus on the Mukhyatma. What is Mukhyatma here? Initially, when you begin, it is the I thought, isn't it? Focus on the I, not on the world, not on the thoughts, not on the emotions, not on the doing, not on the roles. Focus on the self. And it cannot make you selfish. Because if you are focusing on the Mukhyatma, it must expand your mind. If it is taking you into the selfish mode, then your personality is again getting concretized. So it is not a selfish journey. So we are focusing on this I, and if I say, oh, is this not a selfish disposition? Your attention is not on the I, your attention is on the selfishness. Then that will express. When you are focusing on the I, you are single pointed on the I, then there should be nothing else. Not good, not bad, nor divine, nor anything. Standing apart means taking no position. Remaining a witness means taking no position, not of selfishness, not of compassion, not of goodness or badness, not of Mithyatma or Gaunatma. All those things belong to that idiot. They don't belong to Mukhyatma. So Continuing, the teacher replies, Yadyogena tadeveti, Yadyogena tadeveti, Vadamo jnana siddhaye, Vadamo jnana siddhaye, Yoga prokto vivekena, Yoga prokto vivekena, Jnanam kim nopajayate, Jnanam kim nopajayate. That liberation that is attained through yoga, the same is also attained by discrimination. Realization is not separate for a devotee or separate for a yogi and separate for a jnani. It is the same. Whether you climb the mountain from north, west, east, south, you will reach the same summit. You are not going to reach different summits. So, whichever angle, whatever practices you do in your daily living in order to purify, it will bring you to the same point. This is what they say, just as the direct knowledge is attained by means of yoga, in the same way, can't direct knowledge be attained through discrimination? Of course it can. Of course it can. And there is no, just thinking further, there is no question of attainment anyway. There is no question of attainment. Because you are already that. That which is attained by yoga abhyas is explained in the previous chapter. The same can be attained by viveka or discrimination also. Now, what is viveka or discrimination? We explained this before. Discrimination is the between the real and the unreal, between the Atma and the Anatma. It is not about discriminating between man and woman, or children or adults, or Australia against America. That is not discrimination. Discrimination between the real principle and the unreal. That is what discrimination is. Jnana siddhaya yoga proktaha. It was mentioned that for the attainment of aparoksha jnanam, direct knowledge, yoga is the means. It was told there, because that chapter was called Brahmananda Yogananda. Vivekena jnanam kim na upajayate. When the practice of yoga or of dhyana is effective for attaining aparoksha jnanam, why should it not be possible to attain the same jnanam through discrimination? When you contemplate between the real and the unreal, you will also go into meditation. If your attention is on the real principle, you are bound to get into meditation. The goal of aparoksha jnanam, which alone leads to freedom or brahmananda, is reachable equally by dhyana abhyas or by a high degree of discrimination, that is without confusion. Both the paths lead to the same aparoksha jnanam. Why it is told by Swamiji that without any confusion? Because there are many pitfalls on the way. Just like when we are playing I play the game of snake and ladders with the kids. When you're just 99 and straight away you come down at 0. That's the biggest drop. And so many times along the way, the snakes are there to devour you. There are steps taking you further up also, but equal number of challenges and obstacles are also there. One right before liberation, right before winning. So similarly, what are the snakes appearing in our mind? The thoughts which have been born as a result of taking the position as Mithyatma or Gaunatma. If your attention is on the Mukhyatma, all thoughts will become null and void. They may appear, but they will not be able to affect you. See? You're naturally empty. Emptiness does not mean having no thoughts in the mind. Samadhi means having no thoughts in the mind, isn't it? In discrimination, initially it may come about to have no thoughts, but when it comes, once you abide in there, you cannot move around in the world without having thoughts in the mind. You have to have thoughts. They will, and it's not that you are thinking. They pop up. Just like wave pop up on the ocean, similarly thought pop up on the ocean of the mind. They stay there for some time, they go away. When you are able to watch every thought, this is the negative side of it. When you are abiding in yourself as Mukhyatma, you are aware of all the thoughts appearing and disappearing, but you are not taking the ownership. Agitation begins when you take ownership. How do you take ownership? By giving value and attention to the thought. That's when agitation begins. That's when that one thought of Lata will become 10 more thoughts. When you give value and attention to that thought. So just now the camera said low battery, I gave attention to it, and get the wire, let it charge. If it was not, how does it matter? It should also be clearly understood that one's spiritual life starts only in this particular manifestation as a human being. Spiritual evolution continues over several births, ripening and culminating in Brahma Jnana in its own time. Spiritual progress cannot be measured in terms of time, nor is it relevant to compare and compete. Each jiva, each individual has to carve out his own path and pace of unfoldment. So, there is no proxy. No teacher can come and touch your head and make you realize. Your association with great masters. So many people are there, they are associated with great masters, they are doing so much good job with them. But are they at peace with themselves? That is the question. See? Are they at peace with themselves? We go searching for peace, this ashram, that mountain, this pilgrimage. And where is it plentifully available? Within you as you. Not anywhere else. Within you as you. And once you come to abide in it, then everything is the same. Everything is the self alone. As I was telling someone, Swamiji is just bringing this point to reinforce that human birth is only for one purpose, to realize that you are of the nature of divinity. The purpose is not the job, purpose is not to do the duties. We are not saying don't do it, but that is not the ultimate purpose. If there is guilt in your mind, you will do the duty. If there is an itch in your mind, I want to do good for the world, you will do good. You will be propelled to do something for the world. You can't sit quiet. But while all this is going on, do not disconnect from who you essentially are. While the life is unfolding, because you are born with a program, and that program is unfolding. Who created that program? You only created that program. When did I create the program? I can't remember, sir. In your past life. How can I know that I did it in my past life? You look at today. What you eat yesterday will determine how your health is today. What you think yesterday will determine what you're going to think tomorrow or today or tomorrow. Isn't it? If you sleep tonight very well and a deep sleep, then you will be fresh in the morning. Naturally. So my action of going to sleep without any worries resulted in me having a fantastic day tomorrow. So cause and effect. And what are you thinking about today? Everything that you could not complete yesterday, you are thinking about it today. Whatever you could not complete today, you are going to think about it tomorrow. This is so. Yesterday has determined your today. Today will determine tomorrow, and so on. The life is going on. Let it be at the mental level. Let it be at the physical level. Let it be at the emotional level. This is how we are creating a pattern, and that goes and stays in our subconscious. But the opportunity is given to us whenever we are born as a human being to take that opportunity, and whatever may be the program, we can make it null and void. That possibility is there. So that Ratnakar Daku, that dacoit called Ratnakar, he became Valmiki Rishi. Angulimal became a great yogi under the tutelage of Buddha Bhagwan. See? These are examples not just for appreciating, oh really, they are good. No, they are so that we can recognize that we are also as bad as them, and if they can bring about a change, even though being a murderer and becoming a rishi, then there is a possibility, there is a window of opportunity for me also in this life. But it must go deep into our psyche. It must go deep into our being. Just superficial nodding and superficial appreciation of this information will not take you anywhere. It's like when the penny must drop that I have got this form. Thank you, God. You have brought me the right people in my life where I can discuss this topics, and I can think about the Lord. I can think about the self. I can understand everything. You have brought the scriptures into my life. Where I would have come across all this? I never thought of it even in my life before. Thank you, God. But don't stop there. Thank you. Continue to. The more you feel the gratitude for what the divine has done, has brought you, has given you that opportunity, the more you are in tune with the divinity. Right here and now. Don't think you are thinking. Thinking is happening. And thinking is happening, only those thoughts appear in your mind with which you have intensely interacted. And if we, every moment of our existence, every day, we intensely interact with the divine, thanking him, showing our gratitude, shedding the tears of gratitude, invoking the love, and that why I have not become one with you still when you are already with me all the time. You are creating a new mindset. How? Why? Because you are interacting with that theme so intensely. It will overpower all other corrupt themes which keep you in Mithyatma and Gaunatma. Then those type of thoughts will automatically keep coming in the mind. Which ones? Which will take you back to Mukhyatma. And probably that's why we come to satsangs. That's why we take satsangs, because somewhere it has that, but still not enough. Still not enough. Tell me when the time is, because I don't have a watch here. Okay. So so the lessons may be the same, the topic is the same, the sadhanas are the same, but how it unfolds. Like one person went to Swamiji and he said, Swamiji, have you seen God? He says, why should I tell you? He's like that. Why should I tell you? No, sir, please, Swamiji, please tell me, have you seen God? Ramakrishna Paramahansa said that he has seen God. Have you seen God? He says, you may be Vivekananda, I am not Paramahamsa Yoga, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. He wants his head to be put under water. This is the joke of spirituality. You cannot read books, you cannot see videos, you cannot see the animations, you cannot see what Ramchandraji did in his life, or those things can be ideal. But how it is, if you try to practice that right now in your life, it will create a lot of agitation. Then what has to be done? You have to live your truth at this moment. You have to be true to yourself. You keep focusing on the Mukhyatma, and whenever you are in Mithyatma at the level of mind, because till you don't get established in thing, till that it will take some time, till the purification has not, till the disconnect has not taken place. Then we must perfect ourselves. You have to find what works for us. If my body is not flexible, then no point doing yoga. Someone told me, Swamiji, my father is having asthma and everything. Just yesterday or this morning, Swamiji, my father is having asthma. He smoked cigarette for 50 years, I think. 50 years he has smoked. But now he is having, I said, he's not having asthma, he's having emphysema. Oh, yes, emphysema. And I have suggested that he should do pranayam. I said, do you want to get rid of him quickly, is it? Doing pranayam with all the lungs covered in tar? If he has got 5 years to live, you will make sure that he goes away in 1 year. This is foolishness. This is foolishness. How much do you know? How much pranayam do you practice in your life? Then who are you to tell dad to do this? If there is some type of breathing which is helpful, let him go to an expert. Let them guide. You are no one to guide that. And that too at the age of 65. At old age we must not practice all these things. It should be our approach should be gentle. Our approach should be gentle. And when we have come to this path here of discrimination, do mental gymnastics of what is real and what is unreal. Forget about pranayam, and you can, but do the gentle ones. Don't do those which agitate your whole system. The teacher quotes Bhagavad Gita to support his explanation. Yat sankhya prapyate sthanam tadyogairapi gamyate iti smrutam phalaikatvam yoginam cha vivekinam. That liberation which is attained by the followers of the discrimination between the self and not self, the same is attained by the followers of the yoga also. Thus, the oneness of the goal reached by both is established in the scriptures. The Bhagavad Gita says, the same goal called Aparoksha Jnana, attained by inquiry and discrimination, is also attained by yoga. This is what Bhagavad Gita says about the identity of the goal reached by both the yogi and the viveki. The discrimination that is given in chapter 5, verse 5. The discrimination or viveka should not be only book knowledge in the intellect at the intellectual level, but should be translated into the consequential change in one's ways of thinking and in one's attitude towards life experiences. So if we are doing vivek here, what are we doing? Am I entertaining you or you are entertaining me? No, we have come here for discrimination. And what is the discrimination? Our whole theme with different examples, different angles of Mukhyatma, Gaunatma, Mithyatma, of Ati, whatever is very dear will bring you pain. Then now this topic of discrimination versus yoga, all this is bringing your attention back to the essence, back to the essential self, the Mukhyatma. That continuously, again and again, we understand our mind likes thinking, but we are making the thinking the means to get focused on the self again and again, to bring clarity about it. How many ways can you bring clarity about it? N number of ways, because there are n number of angles of looking at the same thing. This room may be the same, but every one of us living here, sitting here, is having his own angle of vision. Room is the same. So how many ways is your angle of vision of this room better than my angle of vision? Or his angle of vision, which is no angle? So imagine how many people are there, how many days are there, how many ways, how many thoughts each one of us is having, how many angles will be there, n number of ways. You don't even know how many beings are there total. We only think 7 billion. Look at the animals, look at the insects, look at the chameleon, look at the snake. Everyone has a different take on the world. Which one is right, which one is wrong? Can't get into that, isn't it? So here, if we are focusing, if we are discriminating, if we have understood the impact of the statement that you are essentially Mukhyatma, if you have understood the impact of the statement that this Mukhyatma is the real self, it is the most dear to us, it is of the nature of infinite bliss, Paramananda. If they have understood this, yes, we are nodding. Then how does it translate when we move around in the world? Then will we give importance to small joys? Will we get disturbed by small disturbances in the world? No. If we are, then where is our problem? We have not become convinced as to what our essential nature is. That is why mind is still searching for a solution out there in the world. It's not just default. It's because you are not convinced. We are not convinced. Because if we are absolutely convinced, then nothing in the mind or the world will ever touch us. And if it is not, and if it is touching us, means I have not become convinced here. So there is still some doubt left. Just like here, the student is asking from different angles. As the topic continues, he is asking different doubts. What is the doubt that we are having? Don't just imagine in your mind. Write it down. What is your Achilles heel, which is bringing you back into the Gaunatma and Mithyatma? Where are you stuck? Are you stuck in a conceptual world? Are you stuck in an ideal world? Are you caught up in an emotional world because of attachments and responsibilities and my children, my mother, my father, my etc., etc.? My. Are you caught up in the identification with the body? You have to determine Nobody else can do that for you. Others can tell if you ask. Those who know, they can tell. Not every Tom, Dick and Harry can tell. But in general, we can sometimes see the people where they are caught up, isn't it? So you assess yourself where you are stuck. Where is your mind stuck? What is the default processes that are there? Become a shrink to yourself. De-shrink yourself. See? And this de-shrinking is automatic. You don't have to think about all the thoughts. It is automatic if you don't want to deal with all the hassles of thinking and analyzing and this and that. Keep contemplating on the self. Then all the cleansing will automatically take place. It is that cleansing is directly proportional. The impact of the world and its effect on your mind is directly proportional to your availability to the world. If your mind is available to the Mukhyatma, then the world has got, it's knocking, but nobody is opening the door. If your mind is available to the world, then the Paramatma is always there. But the consequences of getting involved in the Mithyatma and the Gaunatma, those consequences you have to face. Because you have given value and attention to it. What happens when we shift our attention to the self, Mukhyatma? The consequences are still there, but you are not available to the consequences. That's what happens. Recognizing the differences in people's temperament, Bhagwan Krishna suggested two paths. Asadhya kasyachid yogaha, asadhya kasyachid yogaha, kasyachid jnana nishchayaha, kasyachid jnana nishchayaha, etham vicharya margau dvau, etham vicharya margau dvau, Jagada Parameshwaraha, Jagada Parameshwaraha. For some, the path of yoga is not attainable. For others, the path of discrimination is difficult. Having thought of this, Bhagwan Shri Krishna declared the two paths. For attainment of the Supreme, Bhagwan Krishna enunciates two paths, depending upon the temperament of the individual seeker. Kshetrajnam cha api mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu. A real knowledge is of the field as well as of the knower of the field. Knowing this, the seeker attains immortality. The seeker should not bring relative existence into the thinking process. In case it is not possible, the second option is the seeker should practice Purusha Prakriti Vivek, that is, from conditioned consciousness, he should change and concentrate his attention on the absolute. So second one is what? Second one is shifting our attention to the Mukhyatma. That is the second one. What is the first one? Maintaining a disposition that this truth, this consciousness, this infinite divinity is within and without. The entire world of names and forms, the entire body, breath, mind, intellect, thoughts, emotions, everything is nothing but that divine. Keep bathing in that divine consciousness. For that, deep faith is required. Just mere superficial faith will not do. See? And if your vision is not able to see the divinity, presence of divinity inside and outside all the time, then do the second one, which is focus on the Mukhyatma. Don't focus on the Gaunatma and the Mithyatma. Mithyatma being the one identified with the body, breath, mind, intellect. Gaunatma being identified with the things and beings of the world. There are some who are unable to expose themselves to silence in order to reflect and inquire. Unable to follow this method, they think that being good and doing good is enough, not knowing that good actions are not done by individuals but merely manifest through the man of wisdom. As long as individuality is there, individuality itself is a corruption. Any good action done by an individual has to be a corrupted one. It cannot be any other way. It's a bitter pill to swallow. So, doing puja, going and doing, prostrating in front of the Lord. Oh, I go to satsangs twice a week. Individual is expressing. Individual is expressing. So the ego that I go to satsang, I am a sattvic person, that is there. See?
Be that number 1 and 2, are they, what's the difference between the two? Are they not both of them part of Jnana Yoga? Yeah.
Yes, but in the first one, your attention is on being the self. What does it say there? Kshetra and Kshetrajna. What is Kshetra and Kshetrajna? Kshetra is the field. Kshetra is the field. Kshetrajna is the owner of the field. So one who knows the field, that is the field. So for Gaunatma, the objects and the beings are the field. Therefore he takes that role. For Mithyatma, the body, breath, mind, intellect is the field and he is the owner of the field. Correct? So as long as you know that you are the field and you know that this is the field, this is fantastic. Then you will be able to live through Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. You will move through the world without getting identified with anything. Fantastic. Because who are you essentially? You are the Kshetrajna. Can the field express without the owner of the field? Cannot. Without life in this body, can the mind express? So mind is the field. Atma is the Kshetrajna, isn't it? And the more we remain focused on the Kshetrajna, to that extent, the mind will, the Kshetra will also, it will not change, but your vision towards it will transform from the point of Kshetra. Because from Kshetrajna, what is the vision of Kshetrajna? Everything I am. See? So when we are living in our daily life, a continuous discrimination that this is the field, I am the conscious principle. Falling back into the witnessing mode, falling back into the mode of awareness, falling back into being the... Because where is your attention? Your attention is on the field by default and you are coming back to the source, that which is invigorating the whole matter. You're coming back to the self again and again. And if you are not able to do that on a daily basis, moment to moment basis, then here it is saying, expose yourself to silence or come to the Mukhyatma. Contemplate on the Mukhyatma. How will you do that? Through satsangs, through pranayam, through yoga abhyas, etc., etc.
Is it the one you're talking about yoga?
Pardon me?
Is it the one you're talking about, the two parts, one of them yoga and another
Yoga, don't take yoga as a yoga. Yoga, what does yoga mean? Union. So don't take yoga only as the path of Ashtanga yoga. This is where you make the mistake. You means anyone. Yoga means union. Can this union be brought about only by yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi? Can this union be possible through discrimination? That was the question, wasn't it? Do we reach the same Paramananda which we reach through yoga, through samadhi abhyas? Can we reach the same infinite bliss through discrimination? So here Krishna Bhagwan is telling you is giving you the option, the two standpoints, first one and the second one. The first one being that know the field and know the knower of the field. If you are ever alert about it, not just the field. Normally, what is our disposition? We are only aware of the field, never of the knower. When you are aware of the field and the knower of the field, then you will be in witnessing mode all the time. If you are not able to do this, then you have to do some special exercise. And that special exercise is the second one. Focus on the Mithyatma. The seeker should practice Purusha Prakriti Viveka from conditioned consciousness. He should change and concentrate his attention on the absolute. So you are moving away from the world and focusing on the absolute. In the first one, you are not running away from anything. While you are moving, this is the Prakriti, this is the subject. So right now, if I am speaking, what is the field and who is the knower of the field? What is the field? This world is the field. This body is the field. This movement of the hands is the field. Seeing, hearing, touching, feeling is the field. The speech is the field. The thoughts coming in my mind, impromptu, without any intention, that is the field. And I am watching the whole thing. Knower of the field. Let this be the disposition all the time. It's a game. You have to play that. So you are aware of the field, you are aware of the knower of the field. You are aware of the subject, you are aware of the object. All the time. So if you are aware of that, then suppose you are at one moment, I become, right now while speaking, suddenly I become a teacher. So what is the field? The student. Who is the knower of the student? The field? The teacher. So what position have I taken? Of Gaunatma. Immediately then Gaunatma becomes the field. Who am I really? Mukhyatma. I fall back into myself. It sounds we are making so many steps, but it happens instantaneously if we practice it enough.
Can we say the first one is witnessing, second is surrender?
Witnessing what?
The witnessing, like knower and the known field.
Okay, yes, you can say it that way.
And the second one is surrender. Go to, concentrate on the absolute. It's more like surrender.
You are making yourself, you're withdrawing your mind from the world and focusing it on the Mukhyatma. In the first one, you are not withdrawing. You are not withdrawing anything. You are in the world, and any given moment, you are aware of the world and you are aware of the knower of the world. You are aware of the object, which is wherever your attention. I gave you one example of teacher and student. Suppose I am seeing, I see something. Oh, so the object is, the world is the vision. Who is the knower of the vision? The eye. The seer. Is the seer Mithyatma, Mukhyatma or Gaunatma? Immediately you put it into the three and you come back to your original position. In the moment you know that it is only a Gaunatma because the seer is dependent on seen, it is Gaunatma, don't give it any value. Come back to Mukhyatma. Yet seeing will take place. But you are not attached to what is seen. This is the difference. So one is 24/7 awareness without running away from anything, without running towards anything. Because the whole world is a phenomena of Kshetra and Kshetrajna, isn't it? Whereas if you are not able to do that, you feel there is an itch inside. Yaar, how can it be that simple? How can I find, some people will say, how can it be that simple? Some people will say, it is very difficult. Then for such people, Okay, withdraw your mind from the world and make it focus on the self. In the first one, there is no taking your mind away from the world and focusing anywhere. No, at any given moment, at this moment also, the world is there and the kshetra is there and the kshetrajna is also there. Remain aware of both of them. And in this way, now the question arises as to whether those who follow the path of yoga are superior. Now I went to superior, inferior. Let's see. So we'll look at it in our next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnahat Purnam Dachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Just sit quietly for a minute.